crisis to the stage of history. The social media star turned president of a divided nation. A leader who dared to challenge the system and rewrite Argentina's future. The man who created a following from voicing his unwavering principles of freedom. America Business Forum presents Javier Milei.
Hello, everyone.
I love you.
No, thank you all, please. Thank you for welcoming me so warmly. Thank you very much. Absolutely, we are going to make Argentina and America great again. And do not be intimidated by some local results. First of all, I want to thank the organizers of the American Business Forum and especially its president, Francis Suarez, for the invitation.
It is an honor to be here surrounded by such remarkable figures as President Trump, a friend both personally and to the Republic of Argentina. I am also pleased to share the stage with one of our most illustrious athletes and the pride of all Argentinians, Lionel Messi. A man who took Argentine talent to the highest level in the world. A living proof that effort, dedication, and passion can create miracles. And proof that sometimes I can also congratulate a lefty. I want to take advantage of this forum of business people, leaders, athletes, and thinkers to return to an issue that informs all our management in Argentina. For too long, we have become accustomed to hearing from politicians and intellectuals that capitalism was a sort of necessary evil with which we have to coexist in our societies. Of course, De Los Sayanto, the Tiana Monadosa also openly advocate for communism and a planned economy, but they are fewer and on the fringe of our political systems. However, the position I want to refer to is much more widespread in the West. I am talking about the criticism of the free market to justify state intervention. This is more normal and popular. It has won hundreds of legitimate elections throughout the last century in the American and European continents, and for that reason, it is even more harmful. To avoid boring you, I will summarize an argument. They concede that capitalism is the only way we have found to ensure economic growth, but they argue that such growth impacts society very unequally and also by its own dynamics tends to get stuck. That's why they say we would need the state to actively intervene in the market. The state, according to them, must get involved to ensure equality among citizens and prevent monopolies or market failures from arising. The free market, according to them, is not optimal for ensuring growth and ends up hindering general welfare to favor a few to the detriment of the large majority. The argument states that growth with social justice is needed and the state must have an active role in economic life to ensure it. Tosa kausintade ke benteng desito. According to this view, all the benefits of growth are worthless unless the state redistributes them. In other words, capitalism is just a necessary evil that must always be tied to state charity. I think we all here know where these widespread ideas lead. Using them, the state expands more and more year after year, getting involved not only in the activities inherent to economic affairs but also in the lives of individuals until nothing is left outside of it. There is always a new justification for public officials to extend their insatiable claws over civil society. Under the excuse of enlarging a nation and doing good for its citizens, the state is enlarged as if it meant the same thing, and this happens until we reach the same destination as those who at least have the intellectual honesty of from saying they hate capitalism, total state control over the economy and people's lives, that is communism. Take the example of Cuba, where Fidel Castro came promising social justice, democracy, and a planned economy and died after more than 50 years of dictatorial rule, shouting communism or death. For too long, the pro-capitalist response to the challenge from the state was to claim the economic miracle that free enterprise capitalism meant for the world. Because this the data does not lie and is on our side. That is thanks to the market economy. An innumerable number of people emerged from extreme poverty and enabled countless technological and scientific wonders. But this is not enough, because a moral argument can never be answered with a factual argument. In fact, it cannot continue suggesting the right to be can never conclude the ought to be. And that's why this leftist argument has won in the battle of ideas. That's why in the West, we find ourselves each day closer to that communism we once viewed with horror from the other side of the Iron Curtain. That's why if we concede that capitalism is a necessary evil, we will have already lost. Even if we win momentarily, sooner or later they will return, because they will continue to be the ones who hold the measure of what is good and evil and will say what is just and what is not. We cannot make that mistake again. That is why today I come to tell you that capitalism is not an evil, but rather the form that true justice takes in this world, because it is the natural consequence of the dignity and freedom of man, to whom the fruit of his labor belongs. We do not have many natural rights in this life beyond the right to own the sweat of our brow, which is nothing more than the right to own and freely dispose of our lifetime, whether to use it for ourselves or sell it to others as labor force. That is what makes us all free men and differentiates us from slaves, a dreadful institution abolished precisely by free societies before any other. From this freedom derives the right to private property and the discretion to dispose of it within the bounds of common law. Investment, saving, and consumption are merely phenomena that emerge from this simple truth. I warn that rent controls are an attack on property rights. They affect the price system, they affect the functioning of the system, and end up destroying everything in their path. When the state and intellectuals label this natural right as capitalism to vilify it and justify state intervention, they are not only destroying growth to find their supposed economic optima, but they are also violating the most basic of natural rights. And what the state, because the state turns so violently against the rights of individuals, it does nothing but try to reduce them to slaves. That is, it goes to war against them. Capitalism and private property are not necessary evils. They are not evil. They are the undisputed foundation of our civilization, and it is our sacred mission to restore them as the cornerstone of our societies. That is to say, we do not believe that capitalism is morally correct because it has lifted more than 90% of the global population out of poverty, but rather it managed to lift them out of poverty precisely because it is the most moral model of all existing ones. In this regard, I want to quote a book by one of the most important Austrian economists in history, who is a professor at New York University, named Israel Kirzner. He has a book called Creativity, Capitalism, and Distributive Justice. And the argument made is that the productive superiority of capitalism versus socialism is undisputed. And this is so much the case that even socialists do not question it.
About the capitalist system is labeled as unjust. It is questioned because it distributes results poorly. It is criticized morally.
And what Israel Kirchner does precisely is to say the following: if indeed the system is immoral, unjust, and goes against ethics, no matter how productive it is not worth defending. And that topic, let's say, is taken very seriously and basically with two fundamental ideas. Locke's principle of appropriation, meaning the one who discovers it keeps it, and Hayek's idea of the market as a discovery process. Israel Kirchner proves not only that the capitalist system is the only one that can be efficient, but at the same time it proves that it is the only just system. And whether it hurts the socialists or not, our system is not only more productive, but it is the only one aligned with morality and ethics, unlike their murderous system. Therefore, without capitalism, we are doomed to the miseries of planned societies, which are nothing more than slave societies with much better marketing. What they call the present state, or in English, the welfare state, is nothing more than the phrase they use to hide that. At its core, their path is the path of servitude. Here, I also want to mention a very important work by one of the most important anarcho-capitalist economists in the world, Professor Jesus Huerta de Soto, in a work called The Theory of Dynamic Efficiency. And in that work, what he seeks is to determine what the optimal growth path is. And after making some inquiries about different aspects of economic theory, what he points out is very strong, because he says,
Nothing that is
nothing unjust can be efficient. That is, on the altar of Pareto efficiency with which we economists work, there should be no place for anything that is unjust. And then at the same time, he points out that everything that is efficient must also inexorably be just. And that is rooted in what are our Western values, the values of the West, which are Judeo-Christian values. And moreover, as an example, when I have a cabinet meetings, I say there is always a rule. Ethical and moral values always stand above what political utilitarianism dictates. There are no concessions for doing what is right. And when you do what is just and ethically correct, the country will prosper. In this sense, know that my mission in Argentina is nothing other than to return us to this common sense forgotten by a political class dazzled by power, accustomed to attributing and appropriating the achievements and efforts of its free citizens. Moving pa yan strictly to what concerns Argentina, as everyone well knows, my party comes from a historic victory in the legislative elections.
We did everything that classic politics said not to do, and the only thing that guided us in decision-making were ethical and moral criteria, and the good Argentinians responded decisively with a great victory.
We won by a wide margin in votes nationwide and even managed to overcome a difference of more than 14 points in the province of Buenos Aires, which holds a third of the country's population. They were very tough months for Argentinians, where due to the economic blow that the opposition tried to carry out from Congress, the country's economy was slowed down, generating uncertainty and discomfort among the citizens. Consequently, Aybay po sa Poymay, as I spent the last few months traveling around the country, asking Argentinians not to give up, promising them that this time the effort would be worth it. And this promise was not in vain. It is not a commitment I take lightly. It is a sacred pact with the people who have endorsed the path of this government and have given us the tools to carry out the reforms the country urgently needs. For all this, I consider it relevant once again to thank the trust of the Argentine people, trust without which none of this would be possible. But why do we say that this time the effort is worth it? Because what was at stake in this election was truly gigantic. These elections were parbidacism, a plebiscite between two models of the country, the model of freedom and capitalism with fiscal order as the main battle horse, or the model of servitude, which we describe as its Goliath, the deficit, monetary issuance, debt, and obviously impoverishment. As I mentioned before, for months we have been receiving systematic bombardments from Congress. Almost all the economists in the country insisted, amid a legislative attack on the fiscal surplus, that our economic program was finished, and they clung to the evolution of asset prices and the rise in country risk to justify it. We, on the other hand, said that the fiscal and exchange program was solid because the surplus is non-negotiable, because we stopped issuing more than a year ago, and because the central bank is capitalized for the first time in many years. And once the political noise cleared, what happened? The Argentine market had its largest historical rise in one day, its largest historical rise in 1 week, and it continues to rise aside from the fact that the country risk also dropped by more than 400 points. Ultimately, the exact opposite happened of that infamous 12th of August 2019, where we experienced one of the largest stock market crashes in world history due to the mere possibility of Kirchnerism returning to power. Which, by the way, was none other than one of the branches of 21st century socialism, and that somewhere on the coast, this has entered here.
They disguise themselves as lambs and are worse than the worst of the ruthless wolves.
If there is something that become clear with this, it is the reality of what we briefly call KUKA risk, meaning the Kirchnerist risk or the risk of socialism.
We were able to see in numbers the magnitude of the political risk that our economic program always had to deal with.
And this is so because we have in Argentina a sector of politics so destructive, so alien to the basic principles of the economy and the common good, that their mere presence places the entire country at a very high risk. And now that they are further than ever from returning to power, we can dispel that fear. Historically, most successful stabilization plans in the world had political consensus. What happened in Argentina was unprecedented. Did we carry out a successful stabilization plan with social consensus? Yes, but without political consensus. But the destabilizing attacks were profoundly damaging to society. As you well know, political risk affects not only state financing but the credit of the entire economy. The Kirchnerist madness makes all companies pay more for financing, hire fewer people, undertake fewer projects, and sell less on credit. The Kirchnerist madness makes mortgage and pledge loans more expensive as well as the credit card financing rate. In this scenario, many wanted us to solve a structural risk problem with monetary policy. They tented USA to inject pesos to solve a problem of confidence and the drop in the demand for money. In economic terms, they wanted to solve the drop in demand by increasing supply. In everyday terms, they were asking us to put out a fire by pouring more gasoline on it. But understanding that this would have only worsened the problem, we maintained the monetary scheme, returning to the point we coexist with a part of the political system that refuses to do what Argentina needs, and we have just decisively defeated that opposition at the polls, and that is what matters. Says. Argentina finally said no to this madness that has cost us so much over time. Argentina has taken a crucial step on the path to freedom, a step that is a good measure. It is irreversible. Now, as a country, we must make up for lost time. We have been decades behind compared to the rest of the countries in the region and even more so in the world for the amount of high-demand goods and services we can produce. This means that the convergence of Argentine wealth towards the levels of the rest of the developed world will be phenomenal. We are entering the path where we will make Argentina great again.
Long live.
This is associated with the paradigm shift that has occurred in Argentina in recent years. We are rediscovering faith in the idea that private property and its free exercise within the bounds of the law are the only path to achieving prosperity. And we need to establish this change so that every day fewer people suffer from poverty, so that every day more people can pursue their dreams, whether it's having a house to raise their family, having a car they've always wanted, or being able to start a business. Because change is about bringing back freedom and responsibility for all our citizens. This is the country of freedom we dream of, a country we are committed to and are getting closer to achieving every day. Apiapos Sampika. A country that rises as a beacon for a West lulled by the allure of the present state, by the fallacious arguments of those who see capitalism as a necessary evil and those who advocate for a present state that only brings the illusion of well-being today at the cost of destroying the well-being of tomorrow, as has been demonstrated in Argentina. And I want to repeat it again to make it very clear. A present state that only brings the illusion of today's well-being at the cost of destroying tomorrow's well-being, as has been demonstrated in Argentina.
and the Arjate ones who can achieve this change and proclaim it, because we are heralds of a dystopian future, because we live the future that will eventually reach the countries that are also on this path of state servitude, embracing the harmful ideas of 21st century socialism, or more commonly known in these lands as the bouquet. We already lived through decades of statism that turned Argentina, a country destined for greatness, into ruins. And today we have the duty and the challenge to rebuild it. Today we have the duty and the challenge to lay the foundations for a better future. And the fundamental thing is that 2 out of 3 Argentinians want this new path. As I said on Sunday, October 27, upon receiving the results, 2 out of 3 Argentinians do not want to go back to the past. They no longer want 21st century socialism. They have already realized the lie. With local nuances and preferences, 2 out of 3 Argentines want some version or another of capitalism. That is the window of opportunity that opens for all of us today. We have the vocation to align all the pro-capitalist actors in the country who represent at least 2/3 of our society. It is time to build a great capitalist consensus in Argentina. And this great growth coalition meets a nation where everything is yet to be done. A country decapitalized by years of irresponsible dirigismo that favored consumption over investment. This is so true that as of today, 70% of imports in Argentina correspond to capital goods and productive inputs. The private sector already knows what it has to do, recognizes the opportunities, and understands that the time to seize them is now. As a result of the capitalization that we are just beginning to see, and that will increase over the years, Argentina will exploit resources and grow industries that are currently underdeveloped. To give some examples, we have practically the same number of cattle as 30 years ago. It's crazy for a country famous for the quality of its meat. In line with this, I would like to thank President Donald Trump and his entire administration for having reached the
For the quota of Argentine beef 4 times higher than the previous one.
This is just one of the trade agreements that Argentina and the United States have owed each other for many years, and that both countries are working to rectify. To further elaborate on the idea, Argentina does not export a gram of copper, while Chile, which shares the mountain range with us, exports $20 billion a year. In the same way, we are on track for oil and gas to generate revenues of between $30 billion and $40 billion annually by 2031. Hiralata asphalt pereteso. We have a wine sector that today represents less than 3% of our exports, with enormous potential for growth and investment. And the same can be said for practically any sector, whether it be infrastructure, tourism, dairy, grains, or the knowledge industry. We have such geographical diversity that practically any human being on the planet who decides to invest in Argentina can exploit their knowledge profitably to export their talents to the rest of the world. Portas. Now, thanks to the normalization of our macroeconomy and the proper functioning of the large investment regime, we have the economic and political conditions to do it. And to that is added, for the first time, that we have the right incentives to do it. Not for nothing, we have already had announcements for more than $100 billion in the last year, of which more than $50 billion are already in various stages of approval. Therefore, we must continue moving forward on this path. In this regard, know that starting in December, we will have the most reformist Congress in Argentine history. And this is not only because our space already has the necessary third to support our decrees and vetoes, but also because
together with the rest of the economically rational members of Congress, who fortunately are increasing, we will build the political majorities needed to pass the reforms that Argentina needs. In this sense, we are talking about labor modernization to update the conditions under which employment is generated in Argentina, aligning them with international standards to increase the number of workers in the formal system. We are talking about deepening the path of deregulation and tax reduction to continue lowering the high Argentine cost so that more and more companies can be profitable in Argentina, boosting our productive capacity to unforeseen levels. We are talking about reforming criminal laws so that crime is pursued and punished, because there is no economic growth without the defense of life and property, which is nothing other than the fruit of each person's work.
In Argentina, if you do it, you pay for it.
In Argentina, there is no minimum amount of theft that is forgiven. All thefts are punished.
Without going any further, many will remember the story of Sodom. Precisely, Sodom was a city where it was possible to, one could steal, stealing was allowed, and that's how it ended. It ended destroyed. In this sense, we are talking about reforming criminal laws so that crime is pursued and punished, because there is no economic growth without the defense of the right to life and private property, as I just mentioned. These reforms papalalakuan to getsamen this path in stone and will enable all Argentinians to grow with the certainty that effort and hard work are worthwhile, that the quality of life improves year by year, and that their children will have a life they could not even imagine. Because ultimately, the Argentina of the future, with all its well-utilized advantages, is unimaginable for any of us. And in this sense, I want to invite you to be part of the future we are building. I want to invite you to invest in this country and demonstrate the power and moral superiority of capitalism, to be part of the redemption that the Argentine people need, and that will serve as an example for the rest of the world. For all this, I want to thank you for listening to me. May God bless America. May the strength of heaven be with us, and long live freedom, damn it.
Long live freedom, damn it! Long live freedom, damn it! Make America great again! Gracias, presidente.
Felicitaciones, presidente.
Muchísimas gracias.
Es un gran privilegio, un honor como alcalde de Miami y presidente de American Business Forum, conjunto con el CEO y fundador de American Business Forum, entregarte un obsequio que es importante para los residentes de Miami, para los argentinos en el extranjero, para los pro-capitalistas y los anticomunistas. Es parte de la ADN de nuestra ciudad ser libre y de libre comercio. Así que agradecemos mucho tu presencia y con esto te entregamos nuestro corazón y la llave de nuestra gran ciudad. Pues nada, presidente, gracias a ti. Gracias por venir y honrarnos con su presencia.
Gracias, presidente. Este American Business Forum nació para unir al mundo y no para dividir. Y algo muy interesante que escuché que dijo después de la elección fue: yo bajo la inflación para todos los argentinos, para los que me votaron y para los que no me votaron. Me parece que es un mensaje muy importante, sobre todo porque después de la estridencia política y de las elecciones, yo creo que lo más importante es que todos queremos trabajar y progresar y vivir en paz. Así que me parece que ese es el mensaje también para el mundo. Gracias, presidente.
Aquí una foto. Hay algunos argentinos aquí, yo creo. Yo no te escucho, no te escucho, no te escucho. Aquí tenemos el presidente.
¡Viva la
Oye.
libertad, carajo! Vamos. Gracias, presidente.
Gracias, presidente.
Gracias. Un placer.
¡Viva la libertad, carajo!
Muchas gracias.
Buenísimo.